Senator, I would like to start by saying unequivocally, uncategorically, that I deny each and every single allegation against me today.
Clarence Thomas is someone we haven't spoken about in a while, but with the latest drop of the Epstein files, of course he's back because, of course, our Supreme Court is compromised in this whole thing. So here's the reporting. Sent to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York and addressed to 2 federal judges, the allegation sees a person claiming to be an Epstein victim accuse Johnny Martorano, a notorious hitman and mobster who's admitted to killing 20 people, of rape. The purported victim also alleged that Martorano, who struck a plea deal in 1999 to serve only 12 years for his crimes, was in communication with Clarence Thomas. The victim alleged that while she was naked, Martorano said, "Let's take a picture," for Clarence Thomas. From there, the allegation detailed the extent of Thomas's involvement. It went on to accuse Thomas of sexually assaulting her when she was a child. This is also in my CIA file because a few people have asked me if I remembered, but I couldn't remember much of my childhood because I was drugged so much, the email read. And we know this isn't the first time that Clarence Thomas has been accused of sexual assault, along with a myriad of other crimes and transgressions, and yet he continues to sit on our Supreme Court because there is no one who can or will hold him accountable for anything. The people didn't vote for him to be so influential in our government, and yet he enjoys a lifetime appointment to the highest court in our nation. And what's most devastating about the drop of these files, arguably more devastating than the content of the files themselves, is that not a thing has been done about them. They released the files to the public and said, "Here you go, now what? Do something, I dare you." Anyone who could have and would have done something about them by now has known about the files and what was in them for a very, very long time. The redactions more often protected those implicated in the files rather than the victims, which is the opposite of what was supposed to happen. It's almost as if they wanted to punish the victims for daring to speak up and coming forward. Many of the people named in the files have released statements, all denying any actual criminal wrongdoing, but acquiescing that they could have been a little bit more careful and maybe a little bit more tactful in their email communications with a known and convicted pedophile. Meanwhile, various aspects of our government and legal system have been compromised by design ahead of the release of these files. The DOJ practically works for Trump, which is exactly not how a DOJ is supposed to operate. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has always been a vocal advocate for the release of the files, said that Trump allegedly told her that if the files got released, quote, "friends will get hurt." In other words, he confessed to outright protecting the people within the files, which makes sense because his own name runs rampant throughout the files, even when you assume they've redacted more mentions than we even get to see. So now the public knows some of the things that some horrible people have done to innocent people, to the world stage, to society at large. And we can withhold our dollars from them, boycotting them here and there, refusing to fund their pernicious lifestyles. But that feels like the extent most of us can reasonably do, and even that is difficult. People are still on Instagram and Facebook and X. People are still buying and driving Teslas. People are still buying training programs and courses from grifters like Peter Attia, who, by the way, was a grifter before we even knew he was associated with Epstein. We lost Noam Chomsky, which was disappointing for a lot of us. But if a glimmer of hope can be extracted from any of this, there were those who were named in the files who were noted for how unterrible they are. People like Emma Thompson and Penelope Cruz and Zayn Malik were flagged within the files for being too publicly and too vocally anti-Israel and pro-Palestine. Jon Stewart's name turned up when he was hilariously floated as someone who could maybe help to rehabilitate Woody Allen's career and public image. And speaking of Woody Allen, Timothée Chalamet was exposed for being desperate for an Oscar. He was also painted as a victim of the woke agenda when he was pressured by the public to donate the money he received for starring in the Woody Allen film A Rainy Day in New York, though to be fair, there's no word from Timothée Chalamet as to whether or not he truly felt resentful uncomfortable about having to give up his pay. One thing has been made clear from the files, and it's that public image matters a lot to these people, more than I would have thought personally. It comes up repeatedly throughout their correspondence with one another. They're always the victim in their own minds, complaining that people are so mean to them for seemingly no reason at all. But preposterous victim mentality aside, they're always thinking of ways to endear the public back to their side. With all of this, Trump has publicly berated another female reporter who dared to ask him about the files, and overall, his mental and physical health seems to be failing him. Also, the Daily Mail, and take the source for what it's worth, did an investigation into how Trump became president of the United States and who is really controlling him behind the scenes. Spoiler, it's Vladimir Putin, and his possession of Trump started long before Trump even ran for president in 2016. The article's headline reads, Epstein's sex empire was KGB honey trap. Pedophile financier had multiple talks with Putin after conviction, with Russian girls flown in to harvest compromat on world-famous figures. The bend of the article is that Epstein was working on behalf of Putin and the KGB to attract wealthy and influential men in order to blackmail them. The files include 1,056 documents naming Russian President Vladimir Putin and 9,629 referring to Moscow. Jeffrey Epstein even seems to have secured audiences with Putin after his 2008 conviction for procuring a child for prostitution. Putin was allegedly laundering money with the help of Epstein through the U.S. real estate industry, which has shockingly lax regulatory laws in place. When Trump found himself repeatedly in financial trouble over the years, the reporting found that money he received to keep him and his own real estate empire afloat came from Russia. This was confirmed by Trump's own sons, with Don Jr. stating back in 2008, in terms of high-end product influx into the U.S., Russians make up a pretty disproportionate cross-section of a lot of our assets. Eric Trump also told a friend about their Russian connection, and the friend later testified about the intel, quoting Eric as saying, "Well, we don't rely on American banks. We have all the funding we need out of Russia." I said, "Really?" And he said, "Oh yeah, we've got some guys that really, really love golf, and they're really invested in our programs. We just go there all the time." Between the Russia ties and the Israel ties, all of which is more confirmed and less conspiratorial by now, it's clear that Trump does not work for the American people, which, let's be honest, has always been clear from his own words and actions.
So I wanted to ask you if you think that there's any ties between Jeffrey Epstein and intelligence that you know of based on what you've seen.
I don't know anything. There were reports today, obviously, about Russia ties, because apparently some of these girls came from Russia. I don't know if you saw that was on Drudge Report I saw. So, I mean, there's been all these, conspiracy theories about Epstein and whether he was working with government services, but today there was a report on Russia.
Yeah, we saw the Russia reports as well, and we've reported on the ties between Jeffrey Epstein and Russian intelligence as well. But we also reported that an Israeli spy stayed in his apartment in New York City for weeks on end, several periods of weeks on end.
You've never hosted an Israeli spy before? I mean,
have not.
Everyone's done that, no?
Oh, I didn't know you have. You said everyone. Okay. But I have not, and I'm just curious, whether, again, I know your stance on Israel, but I just want to know whether that poses any sort of concern on national security, something you at least look into.
No, of course, that all should be looked into, but I just don't go off of, Reddit posts. I want to see actual evidence of it.
Well, we've gone through the emails. I mean, I can send you a link to our reporting. This is not Reddit posts.
No, I understand, but there's a lot of emails. They don't necessarily mean that it's fact, right?
Right.
So, but there's obviously...
But if you have the former Prime Minister of Israel and then Jeffrey Epstein himself coordinating together to arrange for one of his top aides and spies to stay in the apartment, that is more than a Reddit post, no?
Oh, yeah, and that should be looked into.
Okay.
Just like
Fair.
all the Trump stuff is being looked into, just like the stuff with the royal family in England's being looked into, so all of that should be looked into. Yeah, absolutely.
But as critical as the U.S. president is in the grand scheme of practically everything, Trump isn't the only one named in the files. Yes, it would be nice if he would go away, especially because of them, but it would be nice if plenty of other people found some sort of justice as well. For now, it's unclear where that justice will come from. Other nations have opened investigations into their own implicated countrymen, but the United States, the gleaming bastion of justice and freedom and democracy, has not. not. There's still hope out there, and there are still avenues through which we could potentially see some justice exacted, but traffic along those avenues has been at a standstill. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks.